Rachel, I have to say, in my world of vaginas, I very rarely come across products or information or websites or conversations that give me pause or almost make me a little squeamish. And that is why I am so excited to speak to Frances today, because the subject matter and the problems that she is trying to solve are really out there and so fascinating. Only a gynecologist could become comfortable with this after 5 minutes.
Yeah, so it is so exciting. All the time on the show, we're speaking to people who either clarify what a problem is, they talk about it in a certain way, they educate people to a problem that they didn't know they have, and part and parcel of that is coming up with a solution. And I think when people hear Frances Tang from Awkward Essentials today, they will see the passion and dynamic personality and energy she has. And you would listen to her and think she could start anything. The fact that she applied it to this women's health challenge that she had, and the way that she's able to speak about things so openly and with such humor, I think has really helped us create these kinds of important conversations.
I want to say this might be the first podcast where we really speak about quote unquote crotch care, which I think is a fascinating little euphemism. So
I love it. As a vagipreneur, I love any clever name, and I'm hoping they trademark it if it's trademarketable, because it really describes a whole new area that's bigger than, tampons and pads and menstrual care and all the other products we see. And the way she's approaching it is with solutions to things that we really now sort of scramble to figure out how to handle.
So I guess this is what happens when a vagipreneur, a crotch expert, and a gynecologist get together. Let's talk to Frances. Welcome to the Business of the V. Hello, friends and colleagues. I'm Dr. Alyssa Dweck.
And I'm Rachel Braun-Sherrill. Each week, we bring you the most fascinating investors, inventors, entrepreneurs, academics, and healthcare practitioners who are making things happen in women's sexual and reproductive health.
If you are a woman, know a woman, have a business, or care about your V health and wellness, fasten your seatbelts and listen in to another informative and inspiring episode.
We are so excited to have our guest today, Frances Tang, who is the founder of Awkward Essentials, which is a company that is solving a problem in a whole unique way. We can't wait to hear about it. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
We often start with what was the aha moment and the business journey, and yours is sort of combined into one. So tell us what Awkward Essentials is and how and in what context you came up with the idea for this business.
So Awkward Essentials is a hygiene company, and our goal is to create solutions for people for problems that just are really taboo, that they're embarrassed to talk about, things that a lot of women do when they go into the bathroom and shut the door and don't want anyone to know that they're doing it. Those are the things that we are interested in. And so I'm married, and for a really long time, I was on birth control, and having that after sex cleanup process for me personally was just, I didn't like it. I hated it. Every time me and my husband would have sex, I'd, roll off the bed and run to the bathroom and just sit over the toilet. And so much toilet paper was used, wiping and wiping and wiping. And it got to the point where I would jump in the shower and kind of use my finger to dig everything out, just because I didn't like that squishy feeling and being at work the next day and just thinking I got my period and just feeling all that stuff from the night before, or even just dripping all over the sheets. Everyone hates washing sheets, and the bane of my existence personally. And so I would Google this probably every few months to see if there was a solution. And all I could find were people talking about it in these anonymous forums, like Yahoo Answers, which no longer exists, or in Reddit. And everyone says, oh, I just use a rag or an old t-shirt. I have a dedicated, thing of baby wipes next to my bed. But in my head, I would always think like, okay, that's great for the outside, but it's an internal issue. Like it's inside. And the way that my body works is that it just comes out later. I can't pee it out. It doesn't come out immediately. I know some people don't have the problem, but I didn't like it. And so I have always loved baking and making cakes. And the way that the inspiration for our product, Dripstick, came about was every time I would bake a cake, I would use a rubber spatula to scrape all the cake batter out of the bowl. And anytime I did that, cake batter is like very thick. And I would think, wow, I wish I had a spatula for my vagina so I could just scrape it out in like one fell swoop and not have to deal with it. And so that was the aha moment for Dripstick, which is our flagship product at Awkward Essentials. It's a medical grade sponge that is inserted into the vaginal canal after sex. And you just twist it and it absorbs all the excess fluids almost immediately because it's a sponge. It's very porous. There's no additives or anything. It doesn't prevent STDs. It does not prevent pregnancy. It's not a prevention tool whatsoever. I have to preface with that. It's simply like a convenience tool for those of us who are looking for one, because not everyone has this problem, but a lot of others we found were exactly like me and just too embarrassed to talk about it.
So it's so amazing. And it's basically a medical grade sponge on a stick. And one of the things that I want to mention that you said earlier is you said you were on birth control, which might, in fact, I want to pass this over to Alyssa in a minute, might affect the experience, but certainly unlike a male condom or a female condom, doesn't collect any of the ejaculate. So that, I assume that was the distinction you were making.
Yeah. So, I mean, being married and I just, we weren't using condoms. And so I personally don't like condoms. And so I was on birth control, and just all the cum was not, I didn't like it. I don't like the feeling.
So Alyssa, do people come into your office?
Yeah.
Just what words do they use? Is there a term, what are they saying when they come into your office? And I'm sure, like we've seen in so many categories, they don't know the vocabulary or have the words to describe it.
I think there really isn't a vocabulary. There's surely no like CPT code for drainage after sex that we're entering in our insurance or billing information. But look, this is something that enough women complain about that they bring it to my attention. They want to know if this is normal. And the answer is yes, it's normal, but no, you don't have to endure it. What I hear from my patients is that they will insist on their male partners using a condom in an effort that they don't have to endure this leakage. Either they don't want to clean it up, they don't want to feel like they have to ruin the intimate moment and get out of the bed if that's where they happen to be. And they don't want to ruin their sheets or their underwear or whatever it is, because after all, these fluids can be present for at least a couple of hours, if not until the next day. I have even actually had someone, Frances, I wanted to let you know this, come to my office and let me know that she used the, as you euphemistically refer to it as the cum sponge, to clean up before she came to my office for a pap smear because she had sex the night before. And, we always recommend that women do not, use anything in the vagina, whether it's a tampon or have intercourse right before a pap smear, because it might skew the results a little bit. So I found that to be super interesting. But yeah, I do see people in my office who have these concerns, and this is certainly the most novel solution I've ever heard of, and admire it for that reason.
So Frances, you've gone viral. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this have heard of you and or the product. Tell us about that moment. It was probably a relatively longer journey than we can cover in this podcast between, you had many experiences as a married woman not using condoms, to now you have this business and you have investors and you have all kinds of publicity. Tell us a little bit more about the journey from I really should do better, there should be a better way, to where you are today.
So I think you'll hear this from a lot of female founders, but there is a certain level of confidence that you need to start a business. And for me, I didn't just have this light bulb moment and say, I'm going to start a business, get investors, and, you know, sell this thing and like go viral. That's not really how it happens. I think for a majority of founders, like I had no idea if people would be interested in this crazy cum sponge idea that I had. And even talking to a few friends who were too embarrassed to talk about it, it didn't sound like it was a good idea, because it's something that people just were not willing to have a conversation about. And so it took several instances of people like truly believing in me and giving me feedback for me to actually take those steps to move forward. So I think although we hear in like TV and books and movies and news, like, oh, they had the idea in their college dorm and now they're a gazillionaire, but it's a lot of time and a lot of different things need to happen. And so one of the key things that I'm grateful for is that I joined an accelerator and they accepted me. And that was kind of the validation that I needed. Like, okay, someone else thinks that this idea is a viable idea. And so that accelerator really taught me the best way to talk about this, because unlike a lot of other companies, I can't really leverage statistics or other people's stories or anecdotes, or even walk into a room and say like, hey, raise your hand if cum in your vagina bothers you. Like no one is willing to raise their hand if, like, you know, for a pitch like that. So really shifting that messaging to, okay, X percentage of women experience this, to, hey, I'm married, I experience this. I don't like it personally. If you like it, cool. But if you are like me and don't, here's this thing that I created. And so really taking the time to learn that that's the best way to communicate this particular issue, because it's such a sensitive topic. Like sex in general is a sensitive topic for people. But now I'm trying to talk about the sticky, gooey, unsexy parts that you actually don't see in porn or in romance novels or anywhere. And so after that messaging kind of was put together, I just like leaned into my personality, which is humor. I think that there is an opportunity for a lot of companies to leverage humor to just like open that door and make things more comfortable for people to talk about and address, as opposed to, I don't know, facts and seriousness. It's just kind of who I am as a person. And so we went viral a couple times, and it's a very Silicon Valley startup story. So people didn't know how the product worked. And I got so many questions about whether it was a suction machine or a wipe or a rag. And the concept of a sponge that is inserted just people couldn't imagine it because it didn't exist. And so it's kind of like the pros and cons of it being an invention. And so I remember I looked on Amazon for one of those anatomical like plastic vaginas so I could like create a demonstration video, but they're so expensive and I was like very broke, like most
And
founders.
probably most people don't know that you can buy a plastic anatomical vagina on Amazon.
I want to make one point, you know, a lot of women who were dealing with this, like in hindsight, I now see this through practice, were using a tampon. They would take like a skinny tampon and insert that in the vagina as a way to absorb fluids. And actually, I think that caused more problems than good, because tampons are super absorbent. You know, they don't absorb quickly like a medical grade sponge or a surgical sponge, which I'm obviously familiar with. So it served a purpose that just was not out there.
So how did you get this funded? I want to go back to something you said. I've been in this space a long time. I've started businesses in this space. Humor to me is one of the greatest tools that we have to take. It's not to take our discomfort away. It's to take the discomfort away of the person who's hearing about it and isn't used to saying the word vagina or, you know, half the words we talk about on a daily basis. Alyssa is, because she's in that space and she's a medical professional and she's talking to patients, but lots of consumers and lots of investors are not comfortable. So how did you get investment? What was the story, or how did you get someone to understand a concept that's hard to understand? You weren't replacing really something else. It's not like there's a product, people, you know, do the dance or use paper towels or a washcloth or take a shower or use a tampon, but there's not like a category on Amazon or in the drugstore where you say, oh, where's the place I go to clean up, semen after intercourse when I'm not using a condom. There's no place to go. So how did you tell that story, and who ultimately raised their hand and said, yeah, I get this. I get that this is a thing for which there's not a solution right now, but there could be a better way of doing this.
So here's today's hot flash. Believe it or not, women can be allergic to their male partner's sperm. Sperm allergy, sometimes called a semen allergy, is rare, but it is due to a reaction to the proteins found in a man's semen, and it affects women mostly. Many women will use condoms to prevent this type of reaction. Others actually have to rely on an antihistamine.
So I guess along the lines of humor and virality, in lieu of buying an anatomical plastic vagina, which I couldn't afford, I used a Twinkie because I'm a food person, a baking person, and that's where my brain is at. So I used a Twinkie to just kind of demonstrate removing the cream from a Twinkie because, cream filled, that kind of trope. And so that allowed me to build like a simple landing page with like a how-to and what it is. And that landing page and that Twinkie video, to be honest, is what kind of spurred our initial virality. So our initial slew of press, which I like to say we accidentally launched in the UK because a writer from Huffington Post UK somehow picked up on it. And it was this crazy week of, going to my parents' house, packing boxes, enlisting my friends, paying them in pizza, very much like what you see on TV. And so that initial bump was very helpful for me to have numbers and to show interest and to show press coverage for when I wanted to go out and raise. Because for me, it was, okay, is anyone else willing to put down their credit card for this crazy idea? And that demonstrated yes. And then the next thing I wanted to know is after they all tried this, would they buy again? And so because we had that initial virality and that press, and then we started seeing repeat orders, it gave me some good data to work with for when I was pitching investors. I will say a lot of investors, I think the idea just was too out there for them. And I understand that. I mean, investment is a risk, and there's a lot of D2C companies that will rebrand products that are already on the market. And I understand why they're reinventing old categories, but this is beyond something that has existed. Like you said, there's no category for it. There's no name for it. And so I could see that hesitation. But the investors that did take a chance on us were Unorthodox Ventures, and they have a history of investing in really interesting and unusual brands, and they like really strong brand personalities. And so with our Twinkie and humor and everything we had going on, we had a very strong personality and an unusual product. So we definitely fit within their investment thesis. But I sent them a cold email. I did not know them. So contrary to all investment advice, I wasn't able to find an introduction with them. I just sent a cold email and said, hey, seems like you guys like weird companies. I'm a weird company. Here's some statistics, like here's my pitch deck. And they were the ones that first took an interest, which we are grateful for, because I don't know what would have happened had I just personally run out of savings to keep this thing going.
Well, it's such a good story as well, because one, it doesn't often happen that way. But two, you had done your homework to say, you know what? You're a weird company. I'm a weird company. Maybe this is something we can do together. And, maybe that's not the most traditional pitch, but at least it reflected that you knew what kind of stuff they were interested in. So where is the company now, and how did you connect to Cindy Gallup, who is a legend in this space?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so meeting Cindy for the first time, I was so nervous. I think I felt like what a normal person would feel like if they were gonna meet Keanu Reeves, but I was meeting Cindy Gallup. I was just so nervous. She's so cool. So I remember I was at an event and there was a VC on the panel, and I kind of just took my chances and talked to him about what I was doing. And he said, hey, I'll introduce you to Cindy Gallup. No idea if she's going to respond. She gets a lot of emails and cold intros, so I cannot guarantee anything. And something actually really incredible that he taught me that I would love to just share with listeners here is he taught me the value of a forward intro email. And he wrote an article about it. And so it's how to make it easier for someone to make an introduction for you. So like lay out who you are and what you're looking for and why you think you're a good fit, to just like, so that the person doing the introduction doesn't have to do the work. It was such a cool thing. And so he had me put together this email. He forwarded it to Cindy. And I remember I was at my wedding photography job when I got an email back from her, and she was like, fuck yeah, let's meet in person. I'm going to be in LA. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I still remember exactly where I was sitting because it was so mind blowing and I was so excited. And so we met in person, and she really took an interest in what we were doing, which I am incredibly grateful for. I mean, she's another one of those people that I could have never imagined I would meet through this journey, or who would be supportive, but just hearing her support and her validation was an incredible next push that I needed to continue gaining the confidence to tell myself like, okay, I can build this, like this can be a business. So I guess moral of the story is like, take your chances, talk to strangers, just ask.
I love to hear that story. Okay, so it's definitely on our minds what you might be working on, what could possibly be as shocking or have so much shock value as your Dripstick. What other products are coming down the pike?
So I don't think this is as shocking, but what we really like is everything crotch care related. So the weird things we do in the bath. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've taken like a pair of tweezers to my crotch to like dig out an ingrown hair. So anything from like hair to urination to just anything that happens down there. What we are interested in next, or what we've created, is a disposable pee funnel. Because I think that there's this assumption, well, there is an assumption that our company is a sex company, right? There's a lot of assumptions that we're going to create, like we're going to go forward with condoms and lube and stuff like that. But what we are interested in is utilitarian products that like solve problems. And so there's so many incredible sexual wellness companies that exist that are making lube and condoms. And so, like I said, we like the weird stuff. And one of the weird things is urination. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
Dr. Dweck, you can speak to this.
Personally, I'm going to be hopefully able to ditch the spare Starbucks cup that I keep in my car for long drives, because during the pandemic, of course, I drove from New York to Florida and thankfully had a spare coffee cup in my car. And wow, I could have really used this type of product.
So I'm a little bit, I have to say, the picture of Alyssa peeing into a Starbucks cup in a car on a long journey wasn't one that I had in my mind, but I want to know what she would do if she had this new product.
And,
What is
and
it
not
called?
one that I necessarily wanted to share, but I want to say that when women have to go, they really have to go. And it's not like, men who have a kind of an easy out when it comes to that issue. A pee funnel is essentially a device to allow women to urinate standing up without creating serious havoc, whether it's in your car or outside. This is something that's been available, but not in the way that I've seen Frances's products. So I'm so excited to see it hit the market. The other thing is, just from a medical angle, it's not really great to hold in your urine for extended periods of time. Aside from the fact that it's horribly uncomfortable, it might increase your chance of an infection. It's pretty miserable. It can distend the bladder and give altered sensation if it's done regularly. So there's definitely a need for this. This is not just for people who are glamping or camping.
Yeah, and no one really wants to touch a porta potty nowadays either. So I think we're kind of in this interesting time where touching anything in public that's like hygiene, no one like wants to do it. And so it's a disposable pee funnel. It's made out of like a sturdy cardboard. It comes with toilet paper because we need toilet paper. And there's like a little resealable bag in case there's nowhere to throw your pee funnel away, because that's also an issue that can happen. And so we try to cover our bases. We're super excited about it because it really just allows us to lean into this crotch care category, which we're interested in, and kind of solidifies what Awkward Essentials means. Because sometimes people will misinterpret the name of our company. They're like, sex isn't awkward, it shouldn't be awkward. And we're like, it's not. And that's kind of the whole point. But now, once we have more products, I think everything will be a lot clearer.
Yeah, well, I love the term crotch care. And since that's my language, very excited to see this new product come out and what else you think about as time goes along, because these are essentials, truly.
Well, it's so exciting to meet an entrepreneur who, you know, not that it's ever easy, but your story, the immediacy, the creativity, the ingenuity that you use to get it there, and you still have that same drive and passion and energy. It's so exciting. I would love you to share where the business is in terms of, is it going to stay direct to consumer? Do you anticipate going into retail? Does it depend on new products? Sort of, what's your vision for building this crotch care empire?
So we've grown a lot over the past year, very exciting. And we are looking at retail. For us, the way we think about it is you don't go to like a sex shop or an online retail for hygiene. You'll go to like CV, you'll go to a pharmacy, you'll go to Target and pick up those things. And so like you said, there is no aisle for after sex care, semen cleanup, but people are still going into stores buying everything from like wipes to shampoo and stuff like that. So we do see it going retail and just trying to get our name out there as much as possible, and definitely adding more products to the line that address like unspoken parts of hygiene.
Well, I love your energy so much, and you've already shared a bunch of really helpful tips. What is one thing you want to share to, if there are budding entrepreneurs or people who are struggling with building their businesses, or people who are uncomfortable, not physicians, because we know they know how to talk about this. Is there one piece of advice you would give them? Because I think it's amazing after the journey that you've been on, and it sounds like this was your side hustle before it became your full-time gig, to keep your energy and enthusiasm, so palpable.
It's not easy. And I think especially as female founders, we like to plan, right? We love to plan. We want to make sure things are perfect and they look good. But I remember there was one point in time, my dad's actually also a founder, and he said like, okay, well, you're just going to be planning for the rest of your life. Like, why don't you actually execute? And I was like, no, Dad, like I need to do this, blah, blah, blah. And then I thought about it. And as much as I hate to admit it, okay, he was right. Like everything that I thought I needed to do was it wasn't actually taking action. And so that is the scariest step, to like put your baby out there in the world for people to see. And it's going to be ugly. It's going to be hideous. I mean, my first website, like first iteration of everything that I did and probably still is not cute. And I look back on it and I'm like, wow, how did people even like intake this? But at the end of the day, had I not done that, we wouldn't be here now. Like I'd probably still be planning and thinking about it and trying to get it right. So honestly, like do the research, yes, but also execute the thing, because you could pivot into something totally different that you would have no idea had you not released it.
Well, let me tell you, your website is beyond memorable. It actually almost was a little cringeworthy when I first looked at some of the material, and it woke me up, and I think it's awesome. So congratulations to you, and we can't wait to see the next product come down.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks so much for inspiring us and so many other entrepreneurs.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast at businessofthev.com for the latest trends and trendsetters in women's health and business.